Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. Credit rating agency S&P Global has kept India's economic growth forecast unchanged at 6% for the next financial year, that is FY23 and 24. In the current financial year, the credit rating agency expects India's gross domestic product to grow by 7%. Meanwhile, it sees the country's economic growth at 6.9% in financial year 25 and 7.1% in the fiscal year 26 and 27. The rating agency said that the moderation in growth in the country is in the fourth quarter of calendar year 22 was partly due to rising commodity exports as India became more sensitive to global cycle, whereas traditionally growth has been primarily driven by domestic demand in the country. Now, as for inflation, which has been a pain point for both India and the rest of the world, S&P sees the rate of inflation easing to 5% in financial year 24 from 6.8% in the current financial year. Furthermore, the rating agency has maintained a cautiously optimistic outlook for Asia Pacific, saying that China's economy is on track to recover this year. So apart from India, of course, China there on path to recovery. And meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has also pointed to emergence of green shoots in China. It expects the recently reopened economy to expand by 5.2% this year, which is roughly in line with Beijing's official target of 5%. Speaking at the China Development Forum in Beijing, IMF Managing Director said that China's rebound this year will allow it to contribute roughly one-third of global growth, and any 1% increase in Chinese GDP growth would also help lift other Asian economies' growth by an average of 0.3%. But the IMF chief urged Chinese policymakers to take steps to shift its economy and rebalance it towards more consumption-driven growth. Georgieva, the IMF chief, also called for reforms to help level the playing field between private sector and state-owned enterprises, together with investment in education. And shifting focus, beleaguered Silicon Valley Bank has a buyer. First Citizen Bank is in advanced talk to acquire Silicon Valley Bank after its collapse earlier this month, according to widely published media reports. Now, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed earlier this month, remember, and became the biggest US lender to fail in more than a decade, unraveling in less than 48 hours after abandoning a plan to shore up capital. Now, the bank took a huge loss on sales of securities as interest rates climbed, which unnerved investors and depositors rapidly began pulling their money. North Carolina-based First Citizen has current market value of $8.4 billion. And moving on, Ammar al-Qudairi, the Saudi National Bank chairman, resigned his post on Monday. This comes days after his comments exacerbated the share collapse of troubled bank Credit Suisse. Now, al-Qudairi will be replaced by SNB banking director and group CEO Mohammed El-Ghamdi. Now, bank said that al-Qudairi is stepping down due to personal reasons. However, remember, his resignation comes within days of his comments to Bloomberg that SNB was unlikely to increase its stake in Credit Suisse. This came at a time when the European lender was battling a crisis of investor confidence that further plunged its shares. Now, the comments fueled investor panic that sank Credit Suisse's shares 24% during that session. Moving on, with the global financial world still coming to terms with the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the Indian startup ecosystem has been relatively insulated from chaos triggered by that collapse. The Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav believes immediate action by government following the collapse of the bank ensured they were not adversely affected. Vaishnav said that whatever deposits startups wanted to shift to Indian banks was flawless, and it was executed by collaboration with different arms of the government. He said that the startup community to think that Indian banking sector as their trusted partner is the way forward, pitching India as a startup-friendly nation. Vaishnav also exhorted global entrepreneurs and innovators across sectors to leverage the India edge to develop trusted technology for the country and for the world. The minister hailed the Indian banking sector as resilient and with healthy balance sheet, and also reiterated that it is important for global economy to have trusted partner like India. Now, Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnav also said that India's first quantum computing-based telecom network, Link, is now operational in the national capital. Speaking at the first International Quantum Enclave, Vaishnav said that quantum communication link is now operational between Sanchar Bhavan and the National Informatics Center office, which is located in CGO complex in the national capital. Vaishnav also announced a 10 lakh prize money for ethical hackers who can break the encryption of the system. He said that we are launching a hackathon for anybody who breaks the system by developing a C dot. We will be giving 10 lakh per break. The minister inaugurated a small quantum exhibition computing firm and invited them to run pilot project for communication network and Indian Railways. Joining me in the newsroom for that big story and also to discuss the future of quantum computing is Amit Ranjan, my colleague. Amit, what exactly is quantum computing and where all will it be employed?
Thank you, Shweta. Quantum computing is basically computing that uses the laws of quantum mechanics, which are the behavior of energy at subatomic levels, that is protons and electrons. What quantum computing uses are qubits. One qubit is equal to 2 bits. Now the astounding thing about qubits is that they can exist in multiple states of binary at the same time, as in 0 or and as 1. So that makes them basically much more powerful for permutational computing. When scientists and engineers are dealing with complex problems that normal computers cannot deal with, they go to supercomputers. Supercomputers are computers that use thousands of CPUs at the same time. Now think, when supercomputers cannot deal with certain complex problems, that is when scientists go to quantum computers or take the help of quantum computing. It is that powerful for the layman. Where all it will be employed? Cryptography, that is basically the science of secret writing. So it comes in the use of defense, where they use codes and ciphers. Cosmology, metrology. So these it's got communications. So these are the multiple areas where quantum computing is potentially going to be employed once it comes into use. India is a little bit behind when it comes to the race of quantum computing. A handful of countries have basically employed resources and money into quantum research.
Okay, I was just about to come on that, Amit. I actually wanted to know how much catching up has India got to do, because we talked about the use of quantum computing, we talked about where all it can be employed, and we also have a quick bite before I come to you on where all can India use quantum computing, the avenues. Let's play up that bite from the Minister Ashwini Vaishnav.
Quantum is the new frontier. The entire telecom sector has totally transformed over the last 8 years. Today, quantum is the new frontier of telecom technology for the security purposes, for cryptography purposes. Lots of technical discussions will happen, many collaborations will happen, and we have today announced a hackathon for breaking the first quantum link which has been established between Sanchar Bhavan and the NIC CGO complex office. So this is now open. CDOT will become the nodal agency, nodal organization for developing quantum communication.
Okay. India, they're going big on quantum computing, Amit. How much catching up do we have to do?
Yeah, it's going big, but it's not big enough. We are lagging in the quantum computing race. France, Japan, Germany and US have basically invested into advanced computing, quantum computing techniques. But the one country that's way ahead of the rest is China. They went into quantum computing way back in 2008. Recently, they announced $13 billion investment into quantum computing. That is the budget of entire Europe and US put together. India is even behind that. What India needs to do right now is basically tie up with private firms. Google, IBM, Microsoft, all are investing heavily into quantum research. That is how India probably will be advancing in its race to catch up. This is a good step. More to come.
Okay, more to come. That, of course, is the big step there, and India going hammer and tongs on quantum computing. Still lagging behind China, if we can say so, but going big there, of course, on quantum computer. Thanks very much, Amit, for joining us with all those details. Moving on, a part of the computer code that powers Twitter has been leaked online, according to a legal filing. The documents were filed with the U.S. District Court for Northern District of California. A user named in the court documents as free speech enthusiast alleged shared parts of Twitter's source code. Software developers. Twitter filed a subpoena on Friday requesting GitHub to identify the leaker who posted the code in an alleged breach of copyright, and anyone who downloads posted on GitHub, the widely used code repository that now is currently owned by Microsoft Corporation. Now, GitHub compiled with Twitter's request to remove the data under a copyright infringement claim and posted Twitter's request online. It is unclear when the code was posted online and whether its leak exposes Twitter to security vulnerabilities or to hackers. Joining in the newsroom is my colleague Justin Thomas. Also joining us, Jitin Jain, who is the Digital Lab Voyager InfoSec. Let me go to Jitin at this point in time. Jitin, what are the details that Twitter has asked GitHub to reveal?
Twitter has made two requests as far as my knowledge is concerned. One is to take down the code which was leaked, and this is in the, and reasoning given for that is the copyright claim which is hosted by Twitter. So in a way, Twitter has acknowledged that the code which was leaked online on GitHub is indeed of Twitter and the API it powers. Second, I think they have asked GitHub to identify and track down the person who has leaked the code, who has created a GitHub account, who posted the GitHub account. And I think they're also trying to, in a way, deter people from downloading that code by saying that people who even download that would be tracked and all. So I think it's surprising because Elon for last couple of years has been saying that Twitter's entire code anyway should be made open source, so that there is a larger transparency in the algorithms, there is a larger transparency in the way search results are shown to specific users, the way advertisements are shown, way the feed of a user is populated. So anyways, he talked about making that entire Twitter source code public to make it more transparent and more accountable and more confident. But I think the code which was leaked is likely because is likely something to do with the backend hosting or API powering, and that is why I think Twitter is worried, and Twitter has asked GitHub to act accordingly and take down the code from their website. Now, interestingly, now GitHub is now owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft has complied with the request. But whether they will identify and track down the person, whether they'll cooperate with Twitter in tracking down the person without intervention from any law enforcement request is likely to remains to be seen.
Okay, Jitin, continue to be with us. My colleague Justin is also here. Justin, the most important question, of course, is how much is Twitter exposed at this point in time? How vulnerable has this sabotage made Twitter?
So right now, the news that is coming in right now is that the initial findings is that a couple of ex-employees of Twitter last year they have been identified as the ones who have leaked this, and it doesn't come as a surprise because the way Elon Musk went about hiring and firing people, that there was a bunch of employees who were opposed to the kind of workings that went around. So these are basically the building blocks. These open source codes are the building blocks of any programming. So it's instructions. So these can cause a lot of issues with their backend programming, and there are a lot of their competitors if they won't, and it's just going to open up Pandora box for them. Okay,
it would open a Pandora's box for them. That is my colleague Justin there. But Jitin, coming to you, would Musk change his plan now of open sourcing the Twitter code as a result of this?
I think he would not make the entire development source code open source. I think what I foresee is that he might end up making the algorithms which power executive engineers to the head of Twitter security. Everybody has been fired. And I'm 100% sure, and this has come after almost 1.5 or 2 years of work from home. So many of the people, in a lot of scenarios would have had some copies or snippets of code or other communications on their devices offline, which was not formatted or deleted by Twitter. And these disgruntled employees, in an attempt to have some sort of sweet revenge, might make many things public to make Twitter more uncomfortable. But since the user which leaked this code calls himself this free speech lover or whatever, I think the code, in my opinion, is likely to do more with the algorithms of display and the algorithms of content selection, less to do with the Twitter security.
Okay. Now, we talked about the turbulence at Twitter ever since Musk took over. We know thousands of jobs have been cut. Company's value has been halved from $44 billion at which he bought the company. It's currently down to $20 billion. Do you think he is a target of another mischief here?
Well, it's not mischief. If you fire thousands of employees overnight who have worked Twitter like right since the beginning, obviously, in every country, in every organization, there'll be some who would want to get back and have some sort of revenge. It happens in every and in cyber security, the most the destructive threat or the most dangerous threat is the internal threat. Employee conniving with an outsider, or employee getting hacked, or internal tools or dashboards getting hacked is very, very difficult to detect and preempt. So I think Twitter is Musk is facing a disgruntled workforce which he has laid off, and not on a very good note, maybe in at times in a very uncomfortable and insulting manner. So I think we are likely to, going to see more controversies related to Twitter, which are orchestrated or which are created by ex-employees of Twitter.
Okay. Justin, you've done at least 3 documentaries on Twitter ever since Musk took over. We know there's not just been a change of management, there's been a change of everything at Twitter. The management obviously changed hands, but the policies in which the Twitter as a company as a whole is operating is also under a lot of scrutiny. Talk to us about the big takeaways from what you have learned about Elon Musk's style of working, and where's Twitter headed after this?
See, if I may play the role of a devil's advocate here, the current situation is like he was asking for it. So there were a lot of, when he went around, when he took over charge, he announced a lot of things that he wanted to do, but he went around firing left and right and center. So even at that point of time, everyone knew it wasn't worth it at that point of time. And right now we see the actual numbers coming in. So it tells you a couple of he needs to again go back on his workstation, clear it out as to how he would like to work it, because right now it is not
that he wanted it to be in. I want to get Jitin here at this point in time. Jitin, what sort of impact are we looking on Twitter as a whole, as a company? We know share prices are down. We know the overall valuation of the company is down. Where is it headed?
I don't think valuation or share prices are going to deter Elon Musk from from the task he's getting into. I think he's a man of conviction and his own beliefs, and he's going to run even extend that he has removed even these SMSs which are being sent for 2-factor authentication for security of ordinary users from any controversy which can land up in him in confrontation with any government across the globe. He's going to make Twitter more for a for-profit company and less of a free speech activism company. So I think in that context, we are going to see a reform Twitter maybe in a couple of years from now, if not 2 months or 3 months. But have patience. I think Elon has an history of getting things right, even if they are late.
Okay, so he's going to change the fate of Twitter there. Justin, thanks very much for joining us with all those details.
Thank you.
We're going to shift focus. The Board of Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO, will meet today and tomorrow, which is March 27th and 28th, on the agenda to discuss higher salary-linked pension, the interest rates that will be paid out in financial year 23, and annual financial estimates. The 233rd meeting of the Central Board of Trustees, CBT, will be chaired by Union Labour Employment Minister Bhupendra Yadav. The CBT decision will have an impact on approximately 6 crore active EPFO subscribers, of which, remember, 72.73 lakh are pensioners as of financial year 22. Joining us in the newsroom is my colleague Priyanka Sambhav. Priyanka, the EPF interest rate for financial year 23 is likely to be around 8%.
Yes, but let's hope for the best, Shweta. It may also increase given the scenario, the way we've seen the interest rate on fixed deposit rising. The entire scenario right now, the way RBI has been continuously increasing the repo rate. So the tilt is that we may see an increase a little better than 8.1, which we are getting right now. Let's hope for the best. And that's what every, salary earner like you, me, and people who are watching our live telecast must be praying that it could increase. And why am I saying that it could increase? Because it's at a 4-decade low. Okay. This lowest PF interest rate, which we are seeing right now, was somewhere in 1977, 1978. So let's hope for the best. The CBT meeting is going on today and tomorrow, and we will see the result coming out by tomorrow if we are going to get higher interest or not. But yeah, hopes are that it may increase, so crossing my fingers.
Okay. Fingers crossed there for every person who's subscribed to EPFO. But I also want to understand from you what other issues will be discussed during the course of next 2 days.
The most important issue is the Supreme Court's order, which came in November 22, saying that people who want to apply for a higher pension, they were given a window of 3rd May 2023. First, the window was, just expiring very early in the first week of March, but it has been extended till May. Now, the point is the calculation is still not clear as to how this higher pension will be calculated. So EPFO has definitely opened the window. The people who want to apply for higher pension can go in and apply for it on their website by filing a joint form. And these are those people who has been the subscriber of EPFO before September 1, 2014. People who joined after September 2014, they are not eligible for this higher pension. But people who have been in the workforce before 2014, they are eligible for this. But then if they had not exercised the option of higher pension, they can go and exercise this option. But also there are a lot of ifs and buts. If their pension was getting deducted on the basic of 15,000, then they're not eligible. So people are looking at the EPFO at the CBT meeting for some clarity, a clarity on the calculation of pension, a clarity on who could apply, who could not apply, the people who are getting pension, can they apply or not apply? So a clarity on higher pension, who's eligible, who's not, is also something which we are expecting that we'll see after the CBT's meeting.
Okay, that will hopefully happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Another interesting aspect is the minimum pension, which is 1,000 right now. And the expectation is that it will go up to 3,000, which is in line with the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour's report. What are your expectations?
See, this entire 1,000 and 3,000 calculation will be put to sleep if people opt for higher pension. Then there is no minimum. It will be linked to the basic that you were earning. So then this slab or this cutoff of 1,000, 3,000 will not be, of any value. But let's see, people are hoping that it will be increased. But, in a world like today, with inflation where we are, 1,000 or 3,000, how does it matter? I mean, it's really not helping anyone.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Priyanka, for all those details. We are going to keep a track of those 2 days, today and tomorrow, and come back to you with the latest on that big story. Thanks very much for joining us with all those details. Shifting focus now, the sporting landscape in India has changed tremendously in the past few years, with non-cricket sport discipline now getting its share of limelight. The recently concluded Women's Premium League was beamed and advertised with great gutso, and although these are early days, it is heartening to see broadcasters and sponsors committing big monies to promote these events. To discuss the sentiments that have changed in sports and its properties and how sporting ecosystem has benefited from influx of sponsors in new age company, my colleague Somolo is joining us at this point in time. Also joining us is Lloyd Matthias. I'm not sure he's there yet, but he will be with us very, very shortly. Coming to you, Shom, first, from the days when it was quite a task to get even state broadcasters to cover non-cricket sports, things have changed, and tremendously.
Thanks, Shweta, for having me on the show. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember watching I-League and National Football League in those days where DD used to cover with only 3 cameras, and you had one ball on the other side and the camera on the other side. So we've come a really long way from those days. Right now we have non-cricket sports properties like football with ISL, badminton, it used to be held earlier, and right now also they're looking at coming it back, and then hockey, volleyball, boxing world championship just got over, where we saw a private broadcaster as well as a state broadcaster beaming it in with good camera angles and with proper commentary and graphics. So we've come a long way, definitely, and it's heartening to see the broadcasters taking an interest in beaming these games, because for a long time there were questions on whether the sports associations are taking the right measures, why the broadcasters aren't interested, and it is important to ensure that the games are taken to every nook and corner of the country, because until and unless you make it more marketable, until and unless you make it a TV friendly product, companies won't come and sponsor it, and in a way the ecosystem will be shorn of the financial support.
Okay. Lloyd Matthias, who's a brand consultant, is also with us. Lloyd, thanks very much for taking time out. I want to actually ask the same question. What exactly has changed from a time when it was a task to get state broadcasters to cover cricket sport events? Things have improved drastically on ground. What exactly has changed? What factors, in fact, have helped sporting events gain traction?
Hey, thanks, Shweta, for having me on your show. I think it's a very relevant and critical question. I think what's changed really has been, in a sense, the point of inflection was really the coming of the IPL. And as Somalia just said, I think at some level, sports really kind of becomes prominent and attracts sponsors' attention, which is good for the long-term development of sport, is the moment there is a good conflux of media, sponsorship, and that really develops the sport. I think IPL brought that whole thing in a sense together. So back when 2016 or 2006, when the first IPL kicked off, I think they bought the right mix of getting sponsors involved, getting entertainment into it. I think the key really was about getting celebrities involved. So the moment you get large corporations who bid for teams, they bring in celebrities on board. I think that makes the sport so much more watchable, and that's when the money comes in. And then that kickstarts the whole cycle, because the moment you have money into sport, that's when there's better talent. That's when young people actually make careers out of sport, and that takes the level. What I would say, though, is tragically that has still been largely a cricket-led phenomena. I think the impact on other sports, I know Kabaddi's tried very well and done reasonably good, but I think the impact on other sports is yet to be seen. I think the long tail is really what's going to happen as this thing progresses down to other sports. We saw the WPL recently, and there are lots of other interesting things. I think we're really about how do we broad-base sports in India beyond just cricket to make the whole sporting pie so much more exciting.
Okay. I want to ask a blunt question at this point in time. Is it just CSR, or have corporates realized that giving wing to country's sporting ambition is beneficial for them? So is it just a part of their regular CR activity, or is it actually beneficial? Is it actually making money? Because it is, from what we are looking at right now.
Well, I think that first phase of corporates getting into sport purely as a CSR activity, in a sense that the 2% post-tax profits, I think that we are beyond that stage. I think there are real corporates who take long-term positions on the sports. And if I could call out a couple of names, I think what Hero has done over the last decade has been phenomenal. More recently, I think JSW, the Jindal Group, and what they've done has been phenomenal. So I think it's companies that take a long-term view on sport that actually reap real benefit. If you're expecting, one quick sponsorship of one IPL, one team, and one kind of sporting logo on a bat or a helmet is going to do the trick, I think that's not the case. So I think the real advantage is when corporates take a slightly more long-term position and therefore are in a position to benefit. So I think a lot of companies are seeing the value and looking beyond just those small tactical.
Okay. I also, Shom, at this point in time, talk about how sports for the longest time has been a very gender-specific entity, a very gender-specific segment, but it's now diversifying. We're seeing more and more traction towards female-led games, and also, given the marketing and the momentum towards IPL, women IPL, it seems like women are finally finding their moment.
Yes, absolutely, and we need to thank the likes of PB Sindhu, Mary Kom for that. They were even PT Usha earlier and Karnam Malleshwari. They were the champions who showed the way for other women sports persons. And right now, what we are seeing is that even the companies, from a commercial viewpoint, they have realized that women make better ambassadors of the game. They are role models like the likes of Sindhu, Saina Nehwal, Sania Mirza. I can go on, and they have proven to us that given the right facilities, given the right areas of focus, they can compete with the best in the world and they can bring laurels to the country. A prime example is the Indian women's football team. I mean, obviously their performances in the last World Cup wasn't that great, but compared to the Indian men's team, they have a greater potential of delivering on the biggest stage. But as usual, the social stigma and the mindset change needs to happen, and I'm glad the companies have finally realized that women's sports properties to have it in them to get the eyeballs and for the right reasons.
Okay. Lloyd, it is not just the right thing to do anymore to invest in women sportspersons, to back women sportsperson. It's not just the right thing to do anymore, is it? There is also economics attached to it. It is making money now.
Absolutely, Shweta. I'm glad you're making this point because, coming after a day after Indian women boxers did phenomenally well in the World Boxing Championship. I mean, 4 golds. Who would have thought a couple of decades ago that Indian women would actually be challenging the best in the world and winning golds? So you're absolutely right. I think what we've seen in the last decade has truly been the coming of women in Indian sport. I think it started, like someone rightly pointed out, with some of the badminton superstars, Saina and PV Sindhu. But even before that, I think what really helped take off has been the performance of the Indian cricket team. The fact that Indian women's cricket is possibly among the best in the world, maybe in the top 2 for sure. And the likes of Mitali Raj and their great success has helped. I think that's spurred on a whole generation of young ladies. And it's also made businesses take a serious call that this is not just about gender equity or doing something right. I think brands and businesses are seeing the potential and impact that there's a 50% of the population of women, and therefore when women get involved actively in a sport, it gets in a whole lot of viewership, and it actually has a much positive impact on the brand. I think with the beginning of the second point of inflection, IPL was the first in terms of getting commercialization. I think women's sport in India is set to take off. It's still a long way from, let's say, being where general sport is. I think all the ingredients are in place. Great performances, sponsors coming in, super media backing, and exceptional talent.
Lloyd, sir, if I may ask you, what changed the minds of the broadcaster? Because a decade or two ago, they were not even willing to beam non-cricket sports. So what made them suddenly shift towards women's sports? I know it's a very welcome change and it was much needed. What were the reasons behind the sudden move?
So I think broadcasters jump in where they see the economic potential of getting advertisers come in. To the sense that when Pro Kabaddi League first kicked off, it attempted to do what IPL did. And I think the first thing they did was they got great broadcasters, but they also got great, fantastic people to actually sponsor the teams. So the moment you get some Bollywood superstars and some famous people take on teams, broadcasters know that people will want to follow them there, and therefore they're going to telecast the events live. And as they build up the event, the whole sport becomes larger, right? So I think what broadcasters are looking for is a larger interest when the sport kind of moves out of its traditional viewership base to a larger one. Cricket has, of course, the largest base anywhere in the world, but when it comes to other sport, it's still limited. If you look at soccer, we talk of the Northeast, we talk of Goa and Kerala and pockets like this. I think the challenge for broadcasters is the moment a sport begins to attract eyeballs, then it's great. I think in women's sport, that's been a point of inflection, but that's begun to happen with the Indian women's cricket team performing so well. I think people are generally watching. Today, people talk about the fact that there was the Women's Premier League finals last Sunday. When India does well and reaches the World Cup final, there's a lot of people following it. So I think the popularity of the sport gets the media and the broadcasters interested, and that in turn kickstarts the whole cycle.
Do you also think that the popularity of social media channels have also played a role in creating more awareness about these leagues and these properties?
Absolutely. I think social media has been a great stimulant. I think one, because a lot of the sports management companies have actually worked closely with these sporting superstars. I mean, some of the things that they put on their social media, the little moments that happen off the field, I think that adds to the overall flavor. I think that's been another part. The silent ingredient in this whole thing has been some fantastic work by some of the sports management companies. They've actually encouraged the women sports persons. They've built up their social media profiles. And that gives sponsors the long tail. It's not just what happens in the one day of that sport or the 90 minutes of a soccer or a game. It's the entire long tail of social media mentions, the coverage, the shares on WhatsApp, on YouTube. I think that's what sponsors really look at as getting good value for money.
Okay. And, before I let you go, how do you see the sporting ecosystem evolve now that there is media coverage, there is funding? Where does it go from here?
I think it's on the up. To be very frank, Shweta, we've got miles to go. I think one significant and big development that we haven't spoken about in the show is the STOPS program. I think back somewhere in 2015, government created this target Olympic scheme. And that was, the moment they get a sporting star who's capable of big stuff, they actually get him onto an international stage. Neeraj Chopra was one such prodigy that came out of that program. I think the moment you have Indian stars match with the best in the world, Neeraj Chopra and the like, I think that creates a whole lot of excitement. I would say today that a whole lot of Indians today not just know what javelin throw is all about, but there are schools in India that actually are opening up sports like javelin, which even a decade ago was virtually impossible. So I think it's really that we are at a point of inflection. I think a good mix is coming in of government support, of sponsors, of media. And I would say the next few years are critical, but I would really think that we can be positive that in a decade or so, we actually be serious contenders for a, let's say, a top 5 finish in the Olympics. And coming where it was a few decades ago, that would seem like a dream. Today, I think it's closer to reality. So we are in a very, very great positive position right now.
Okay, Lord Matthias there, upbeat about the future of sports in India. Lord, thanks very much for joining us. Shomale, thanks very much for joining us with all those details and with that very important story. Shifting focus now, 197 Communications, the parent company of Paytm Payment Service, has received an extension from the Reserve Bank of India to resubmit its application for a payment aggregator license. A payment aggregator license is a permit that allows a company to act as an intermediary between a merchant and a customer in a payment transaction. Now, payment aggregators collect payments from customers on behalf of merchants and then transfer the funds to the merchant's account after a specific time. Payment and Paytm has been granted, remember, a 15-day extension to apply for the payment license. This means that Paytm can continue servicing existing customers of its payment gateway. However, it cannot onboard new merchants. Furthermore, for offline business, 197 Communications can continue to onboard new merchants and offer them payment services. There is also the talk of Indian government making an unfavorable decision. The central bank must be notified. Remember, we are talking about 197 Communication, the parent company there, Paytm, being given an extension to operate this very important payment aggregator service. The extension does not mean they've been given a nod and they will have to resubmit their application. Shifting focus, remember back in November of 2022, RBI had granted Paytm 120 days to reapply for the aggregator license, and it will now be given furthermore time to resubmit its application. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Plus. Thanks for watching.